Welcome to Season 4, Episode 9 of Trail Tales ARP. Erik Bohm is back, fresh off Project 80, where he attempts to run a half marathon in 80 minutes. Did he do it? Well, you have to listen to find out. Also, there were some unexpected curveballs added to Erik's training, as you're about to see. And Erik never comes here empty-handed. Linked to our show notes are a gift from Erik himself, his 80, 85, and 90-minute half marathon plans available in PDF just for you. Thank you, Erik. And now, let's get on to our show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trail Tales ARP. I'm your host, Sean Sobon, and I've got a returning guest with me this week, and it's Master Coach Erik Bohm from Effortless Running, and he's got some exciting news for us, exciting things to talk about today. So, Erik, welcome back to the show. Thanks again. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me all the way from Thailand. So, you mentioned the first snowfall just arrived at your place. We're going into the dry season.
Going into the dry season. What are the temperatures over there today?
Today was about 30 degrees.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous.
I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. It's hot.
It's hot. It's certainly hot. Yeah, we're sitting at maybe, I think we're not too bad. It's like -2 Celsius today, and we've got about 6 inches of snow. It looks like a winter wonderland, and I'm kind of in that headspace for winter. So I love it, and I love running in the winter. It's really great. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Erik, you're fresh off your Project 80, which is your project to run a half marathon in 80 minutes.
Correct.
So let's get into that right away, because this is something you put a lot of effort into. There are some curves along the way within your training that were unexpected, but pretty good as well for you. So let's talk about that. So how long was your training leading up to Project 80?
It was about 11 weeks, 10 weeks, no, but including race week, 11 weeks. So I initially got this idea in the summer, where I thought like, oh, there's going to be a race on, and here in Thailand we're very lucky. We're actually allowed to have races and get there's when the whole COVID situation started, a lot of the races were obviously cancelled.
Right.
But then after quite a strict lockdown period, races started to open up again, and the postponed races all got backed up to the end of the year. So there's a lot of races going on at the moment, and one of them was the half marathon here on the island of Phuket, where I live, which is quite a well-known marathon and half marathon. And I'd run it last year, and I thought, oh, that'd be nice to do that one again if it's on, and why not make it a bit more of a challenge? So I said, okay, let's try and see if we can get people to start running together, and to sort of join in around one common goal of trying to get someone in under 80 minutes. And so 80 minutes means that you're trying to keep a 3:47 minute per kilometer pace, which is pretty fast. It's not undoable. And I knew that there were on the island, there are different pockets of like running groups. Yep. And I knew that there are faster runners in those pockets, and it was kind of an idea of trying to, hey, let's all work together. A lot of people signed up for that race anyway, so let's all try and work together and push each other, right?
Right.
And then so we started that 11 weeks out, and I created the training program like month by month, and then as it gained a little bit of momentum, there were a lot of people that said, I really like the idea, but I know I can't run 80 minutes. Can you create a Project 85? And then I went, yeah, I think I can, because if I'm designing a monthly training program around 80 minutes, then just tweak the times a little bit, and then it's an 85-minute, right? And then once I did that, there were people like said, "Oh, I really want to try and break the 1.5 hour, so the 90-minute record. So can you make a 90-minute one too?" So we ended up having 3 groups of runners, unintentionally, but that was pretty nice. That was cool to see. And we would meet like once every 3 weeks or once every 2 weeks to try and set a specific run, like a time trial kind of run.
Sure.
And everybody would get together to try and see if they can meet their standards, right?
Yeah.
So that was that first 5 weeks came and went, and everybody was happy, and people were training. And then we got some news that the UTMB sanctioned race trail run that was meant to be in Thailand got the go ahead to be organized. So then they invited some of the runners, including me, to try and come and race that race. But I had done no preparation since the last time that we spoke, where we spoke about that Everesting challenge that I did. After that, I had not done any trail running. So I moved over and I promised myself to do just road racing until the end of the year.
Right.
So that was a bit of a spanner in the works, because they said, like, do you want to come and compete in the UTMB? And I went, yeah, sure, of course. Like, who says no to that, right? And
yeah, I'm just training for my Project80. I'm halfway through, but yeah, I'll come run the UTMB.
Yeah, exactly. And, so I said, like, which distance would you like me to run? And they went, well, can you do the 160? No. I can safely say I'm not in any way, shape, or form to do either the vertical or the distance.
Right.
And then there was the 120, but I said no to that one too. And I said, well, you can also do the 80. And then I went, oh, that's brilliant, because now I'm having this Project 80, but now Project 80 is going to morph into like a dual kind of purpose. So to try and run an 80K trail run, and try and run it well, and then have 2 weeks to recover to make sure that I run an 80-minute half marathon. So I had an 80K trail and an 80-minute half marathon. And now I'm torn between the two. Like, how do I, as a coach, like, okay, now I need to find a way to make sure that I prepare well for both.
Yeah. How much lead time did you have from the time they contacted you to the time the half marathon was going to be in the trails, or the ultra marathon? Sorry,
the 80K trail was about 3.5 weeks. So it wasn't all that much.
No, not too much at all.
So yeah, so and that's why I ultimately decided to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run the trails, but I'm going to rely on my previous experience and previous base of trail running and vertical, and I'm just going to continue. Basically, I'm just going to continue the half marathon challenge program.
Okay.
And I'll just see how I end up in that trail.
Okay. So that's a lot of confidence in your ability, but it's also you knowing what you've done in the past and knowing how hard you can push yourself, right? Like you know your limits, so you're thinking, okay, I can do this, which is a good mindset to have when you're going into something like that.
I knew I could finish. I knew I could finish.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how tough it was going to be on the hills.
Yeah.
If I was going to have to walk a lot of it and be a middle of the pack or at the back of the pack, or if I could actually compete, right? So I did ask the organizer. I said, "What's the purpose? Like, do you want me there to like race and gun it?" And then I'll do that, but the chances are I might collapse after 40K because I didn't put in the work. And they went, no, it's okay. We don't expect a podium result from you. but we would like you to have you there, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And then, much to my surprise, actually, because it was such a rainy weekend, we had some torrential downpours on that UTMB track, so everything was super muddy. So the race organizer beforehand, he came up to us and he said the first 3K are pretty flat and are pretty easy to navigate, but then there's a hill and it's like a slip and slide. It's a mud fest. So he said, whatever you do, make sure you get out of the blocks fast and get to that hill as one of the first runners. And that was, I took that advice, and it was me and one other runner, and we just went for it. And the first 3K, I felt I was on the track, and we were flying down the course for the first 3K.
You just dropped the whole field and just went right for the hill.
Basically, it was the two of us after 3K, and then we could get up the hill pretty easily, but I think we already gained like 5-6 minutes on everybody else, because we went out super fast, but then also had the luxury of picking your route, and being able to take the paths that weren't actually all trodden on.
Right.
And I don't think if you were in the pack that you would have lost a lot of time there.
So what was that first hill like, and throughout the remainder of the ultra, what was your strategy dealing with the hills?
There's to put it into perspective, there's one photo that somebody took, and it looks like a scene out of the movie Braveheart, where people are like charging up the hills with their poles and everything. And it looks it looks like they're about to lay a siege on sliding backwards. And it was because the 160K and the 120K had already passed on that same route. There was really nothing that there was really nothing that you could hold on to, like, other than like little bushes and scrubs and trees. And it's in the north of Thailand, where it's the highest mountain of Thailand. So it's pretty jungle, kind of foresty. Like, the higher you get, it turns more into like a European or like Northern American forest kind of.
Okay.
But it was pretty steep. There were a lot of long, gradual sections up, and then quite slippery, sketchy downhills, very muddy, obviously. And so that meant that uphill you weren't really able to set a good pace. Like, you were constantly kind of slipping away, and as if you're running up a sand dune.
Sure.
Right, or running in the snow and running on ice where you slip. And then on the downhills, you were constantly, you didn't have your aerobic muscles where you're just ticking over and going downhills. You every step was like, had that normal running step, but then a little try and balance your stride. So my quads were on fire after about the first 30K, which had the most elevation in it. Because it was just constantly trying to correct yourself and prevent yourself from falling.
Okay.
And that hurt quite a bit, and that stayed with me for quite a long time after the race.
Yeah, especially because of the training you've been doing leading up to that point. It's all been flat, right? On the road or on the track, and
it is all reliant on like a smooth turnover.
Yeah.
And so that was I knew, like, it was hurting at the time, but I knew it was going to hurt more after.
You're going to pay for it after, yeah. So the big question is, were you able to stay on your feet the whole race, or did you have any slips or falls?
No, there were a few, and especially towards the end, I looked at the profile, because as you do during the race, right? Your bib has the elevation profile on it.
Sure.
So you're constantly looking and sort of judging like where you are. And the last hill looked like nothing. Right? It looked like it was easy, right? But it was getting dark, and we were going into the night, and the terrain was just rice paddies where we were walking on like the edges of the rice paddies where they, and because they were so muddy, you would slip and you would fall, you would sink like half a meter into a rice paddy.
Oh my gosh.
And then we came up to the section, and I kid you not, I looked up. I couldn't believe that we were going up. So I started looking for the ribbons like down, because I was convinced we weren't going up the hill. And then there was nothing down. And then I remember that dreading having to look to my right, because it was just a sheer wall going on. and I must have fell like half a dozen times, and there were quite a few curse words. It was good that nobody was around me to hear that.
Yeah,
because it was I was done by that time. Yeah.
Oh wow! So this was a gritty race.
Yeah. It was it was a real slugfest in that sense. That it was it wasn't pretty as in like an easy runnable course. It was pretty hard to navigate.
It's funny sitting here at the comfort of my desk. I think that sounds like a ton of fun, but I guess when you're in the moment, you're thinking I'd rather be anywhere but here, you know?
Yeah. No, and the minute you crest the hill, and we had a similar experience earlier in the day when we reached the highest point. Like the entire day we were covered in fog and clouds, and you couldn't really see anything.
Right.
And as soon as we crested the hill, we had some sunshine like burn away the clouds, and it just opened up, like it was God's window opened up before us. And I remember catching up with some of the 120K runners, and there were 5 of us. We just stood there for about 30 seconds in awe of what the display that was happening, and that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get to the crest of a hill, you're like, you might swear and curse and on the way up, and then when you get there, you go, right, okay, that was pretty awesome. And you would do it again, right? And you would go like, oh yeah, that wasn't too bad. I remember myself saying as I crossed the finish line.
It's good to have a short memory when it comes to those things, eh? Because the payoff is well worth it, I guess, eh?
Yeah.
Amazing.
And sometimes they say like too stubborn to stop, right? Or too stupid to stop.
Exactly. It's a fine line between the two. So you finished off the 80K Ultra, and you're still in good shape. Your quads are hurt, and you've got 2 weeks now to recover before you're going for your 80-minute half.
Yeah.
So what was the next 2 weeks like for you, Erik?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. I was that's what I didn't know either, and I was going to I was going into it with a sense of curiosity, right? What does this do to the body? And about 3-4 days after the race, I was starting to feel good again. And then, but as soon as I went for like a workout, or one of the planned workout sessions that I had, I could feel that I could maybe run a couple of K at the goal pace. But then I would start to feel like hollow legs, right? Like there's no energy, there's no kick.
Yeah. And
I went, okay. That was my run on the Saturday before the race, and I still had that feeling. So I went, now I'm starting to get a little worried.
Sure.
So I shortened the workouts because I knew it wasn't going to add anything to it.
Right.
If I tried to search for something that isn't there. So I took another 2 days of rest, and then in the week leading up to it, I just did short 6Ks where I tried to go 6-7 Ks where I tried to go at the race pace.
Okay.
And on the Friday, the Friday run started to feel good again, started to feel like powerful again. And Sunday morning was the race, so I thought, okay, we're going to see how it goes. I have no idea, but I'm starting to feel good again. So that was nice.
That's good.
And then we got to, so I definitely cut back more of my volume than I would have normally done. But I tried to keep the intensity up. And I know that that's the kind of taper that works well for me. And some people like to keep the volume up but drop the intensity, and other people drop the intensity and the volume. I know I work well if I cut back on the volume, but try and keep the engine revving, try to keep the intensity up. And so then we got to the start line on the Sunday, feeling really good. And then we went, okay, let's go. The gun starts and we're off. And there was about 7 or 8. We were about a group of 7 runners, all bunched together. And then after about 3 kilometers, four guys pulled away, and they ended up doing a 1:10 or a 1:09, I think was the winning time. So that was the smart move not to go with them, because I was feeling really, really good, but I could feel that it wasn't, that there was still some fatigue there. Not at 6K, at 7K, I was fine. But then after 10K, I realized, okay, I'm going to try and just keep goal pace, because that's probably what I can do. So I focused on that 3:47 minute per kilometer pace, and then just try to keep that for the entire race. And then as we were turning the last corner, I'm thinking, I'm going to do this. And then the sign said 700 meters to go. And my watch said something different. My watch said, you're nearly finished. You've got like about 300 meters to go. And I went, oh no, like the course is longer than what my watch says.
Right.
So I started tried to pick up the pace. I don't think there was much difference anymore in pace, but I tried to pick up the pace, and I could see in the distance, you can see the clock, and you could see the time, the seconds just ticking away, right? And I saw, like, I couldn't quite see. I saw 1:19, but I didn't know if it was 1:19:20 or if it was 1:19:40 something. So I'm charging down the finishing chute, and I look at it and I go like, nah, I'm not going to make that. So I saw the clock go to 1:20, and then I think I'm stopping the watch about 5 seconds after the 1:20 mark.
Right. So just shy of the 80.
Yes, shy
seconds.
of it.
As they say, by a frog's hair.
By a frog's hair, yeah, and that's right. And now I'm, because I made it so public, right? Like, I'm going to try and beat the 80 minutes. So now I'm faced with this dilemma, because my watch says that the course was long, and so my Strava uploaded and went like, yay, you've got your half marathon in 1:18 something.
Right.
But I know, like, no, the race is what was meant to be a Project 80 for the race, and I didn't make it. I got 1:20:08. Right? That's what the recorded time says. So did I make it or did I not make it? And then, but people were very friendly and kind, and they said like, no, it was in the 80s, so you made it.
Yeah.
But in my heart of hearts, I know that I need to do this again.
Yeah. So as good as it was, and that is a great result still, like you said, you still have unfinished business, right? So exactly. I know we'll see you back there for sure. But this time, just a little bit of a friendly advice: no ultra marathons in between the training.
Yeah, maybe I won't. All in all, it was a fantastic experience, and I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't want to have missed that trail run
for sure.
Just to try and get that 8 extra seconds. That was not. It was definitely not worth it going to the north of Thailand and just spending time with my running buddies there. And
yeah, I agree with you.
One of them I think you might want to have on your show, because he's a fellow Canadian.
Oh, you send his info my way for sure. Yeah,
and he won the 120. And
did he?
Was just he's amazing. So, and I think he has a few good stories too. His nickname is the Honey Badger, so that tells you enough about
There you go. There you go. Yeah, send him my way for sure. That'll be great. The Honey
I'll do that.
Badger coming on to
Yeah.
Trail Tales.
Yep, there you go.
That's awesome, Eric. So I want to go back just a little bit. So in that 2-week period from recovering from your ultra leading up to the half marathon, and you had mentioned you felt like the hollow legs and the quads were pretty burned up. Did you do anything different in terms of like some rehab, or did you change some of your nutrition a little bit to kind of help restore all your glycogen and everything in your body? Like, did you have any strategies there at all?
Typically, I find that after a trail, it takes me about 3 to 4 days to eat back the calories that you've burned on the trail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I follow a plant-based diet, so I tend to eat a lot anyway, as in a large amount, a big volume, because it just tends to be not as calorie dense as some of the other diets. But then 3 days or 4 days after, I'm just double lunches and like can't have enough for dinner, and it's just like you're constantly hungry.
Yeah.
So did I do something different? I ate way more to try and recover what I burned. I think it also depends on what you eat during the competition. Like if you keep eating, and if you start your nutrition right from the start, and you make sure that you never run into too much of a deficit, then it's easier to recover after. Mm-hmm. And it helps, it aids the recovery. It makes sure that you still need to eat extra, but sure. I think it's disproportionate if you don't fuel yourself well in the race. You dig much deeper into your reserves, and those are harder to restore, I think. Mm-hmm. So I felt that after about 3 or 4 days, I was back on my normal diet, and I didn't really change anything in those last 2 weeks.
Okay.
In the weeks leading up to the training plan, like some of the harder runs, I tried to like get an extra recovery drink or get an extra recovery smoothie or shake.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sounds like a pretty sound strategy, anyways. And like you said, you have to kind of replace what you burned off in the ultra, right? So. Yeah. And because it's like the plant-based diet, I guess that volume, like you said, you have to eat a lot more. Now, did you just get like sick and tired of eating the same stuff, or do you have a wide variety of different options that you go through?
No, we have a really good like vegan community here, and the sports resort that I liaise with has a fantastic a vegan chef, and he has all these recipes. He's called the Holistic Chef. If you want to check it out, he's okay. At Tanyapura, and he's amazing chef, Jamie Raftery, and he has loads of great recipes where he always combines different types of carbohydrates, so that you make sure that you've got all your amino acids, instead of just like that, because that's the biggest challenge, according, like for me, mm-hmm. Is to try and make sure that I get all of the building blocks. And there's not a lot of food sources, plant-based food sources, that have all of the amino acids to recover, right, to produce the protein.
Sure.
But it's as simple as making a burrito where you have your rice berry, and then you add beans, and now with that combination, you have all of the amino acids, or quinoa and chickpeas or something like that. A lot of the either Indian like curry dishes or like Mexican, they automatically like have that combination of the right carbohydrates together.
Okay.
And then you're good to go.
Awesome. So it sounds like your diet, you have some good support there with you.
Yeah. I'm not, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of cooking,
Yeah.
but that's the beauty about Thailand is there's food on every street corner, and you can, and they're very, people are very open to you saying like, oh, can you mix this and that, and can you add in this or leave out that? So that's a real blessing. So
Oh, that's
I
great.
have to admit that I don't cook very often.
That's all right. My cooking skills are being developed, if you if you want to say it that way.
Yeah.
um, how did everybody else that was training with you do?
Come again? Sorry.
The other people that you were training with for the Project 80, how did they fare in the half marathon?
Yeah, really well. Like, and this shows you what a consistent training plan and a defined goal to work towards, how that helps in your training, but also to create this community, because it was hard to drop out. It was hard not to go to the sessions because you knew your buddies were going to be there, and just having that supportive group of people who are in this challenge together with you, and are not competing against you. We weren't there was no animosity, right? We said right out from the start, we said, if it doesn't matter if one of us makes it, everybody succeeds. Like that's what Project 80 is. It's we don't want X amount of runners crossing the finish line under 80. We want one person to do it, and we want one person to run to 85, and whatever plan you're training for, we will cheer you on to try and get there.
Yeah. And that's so important. So important. I'm going to steal a quote from my good friend, Coach Jeff, and he says, all ships rise with the tide. And that's exactly what you're talking about right now.
And that's exactly what we intended to do. And yeah, everybody, I think there were a few PBs. There were definitely a lot of PBs along the way. I don't know if there was any race PBs, but everybody came across the finish line exhausted but smiling, and
that's amazing.
That was what we were hoping for.
Yeah, I would definitely call that a success for sure.
Yeah. So we went for a nice coffee afterwards together.
Wonderful.
And, celebrated, and that was really cool.
Wonderful. So Erik, you had mentioned in your email with me, you want to talk about getting better with age.
Yeah.
So give me some inspiration. Give me some hope here.
This was this sprung out of there were a lot of people hitting PBs along the way, and then they would email me and say, "Oh, thanks for the training plan. I'm really enjoying the training plan, even if it got distributed to a third or fourth or fifth person. Like I didn't know how far it reached, right? Like some people I knew that I sent it to, but then they sent it to their friends, and I'm happy to put it into your show notes as well for people
Thank
to enjoy. We'll put all three programs there so that people can choose can pick their battles.
That's right.
But what started to happen was that people started to email me and say like, "Yay, I'm really enjoying the program. Thanks a lot. It's easy for guidance, and I've just hit my PB, and I'm 45 years old, or I'm 53 years old, and I'm running better than ever, and I'll turn 60 in 2 months' time, and I've run my best 10K ever." And,
wow.
And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And this kind of goes back to one of the underlying or underpinning elements of effortless running, that our bodies are designed to run, and that the drop off with age in distance running is relatively little. So when it comes to the marathon or half marathon or just distance running, you can be as good as a 20-year-old in your 40s or your 50s. And that's remarkable, because in a lot of other, like in sprints, if you're 50, like, you're not gonna compete with somebody in their 20s, right? They will blow you out of the water. But for distance running, it's different. And Chris McDougall has this theory in Born to Run. I don't know, I'm sure you've read that.
Oh yes, yes.
Where he argues that this is prehistory, so we don't really know, right? But he argues that in prehistory, that the whole tribe had to be able to contribute to the hunt, to that persistence hunting way. So you needed the young dogs who were strong enough to go in for the kill once the gazelle had run out of pace, but you also needed some of the more experienced runners, because they knew exactly which deer in the herd, or which gazelle, or whatever you're hunting, you were following, right? So that you don't make the mistake of like switching deers. And then you needed the women there as well, because they were childbearing, and they needed to bring the 2 times when you need the most protein in life is when you're either breastfeeding or when you're a newborn, right? And so everybody kind of had a need to be able to stay with the pack. And I really truly think that is true, and that is I think that is one of the reasons why in distance running, the drop off with age is way less. And if you look at something like an 80K or an ultra marathon out on the trails, it's not a question of if you're going to hit a low point or if something will happen, right? Something will definitely happen.
Yes.
You are going to have to deal with something. And if you're a 20-year-old, I know if I look at myself as my 20-year-old self, then I could be like thrown off in a big way by something that it occurs that's out of my control, heavy downpour, right? A very muddy hill, a slip, a fall, and then I would go like, forget this, right? Like I'm done. Whereas if you're older and wiser and more experienced, then you know how to kind of navigate that. And you see that a lot in the longer distances, that as the older you get, it's actually a lot of the competitive age groups are not the 20 to 30-year-olds. There might be some hot shots in there that just like blow everybody out of the water, and they will win the race overall.
Right.
But the majority of the people that finish really strong on average is more in the 35 to like 50 category.
Right.
So that kind of inspired me to have a little think about like why, as you get older, can you actually outperform your younger self?
Right.
And I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that you can, because I also think that very few of us actually reach their full potential in their 20s, unless you have the guidance of a national coach or somebody who recognizes the talent that you have and like nurtures that and brings that into fruition. I think a lot of us underestimate in our 20s what our true potential is. And there's also so many, like, you're discovering the world, right? Like you want to do everything. And then because you're more focused when you're older, you go, all right, trail running, that's my thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm going to do. You get really good at it. And so if you do it long enough, if you do that training program, if you were consistently applying that training program, you would have seen results. Were they as good as they've ever been? It depends on how good you were when you were 20. But for a lot of people, it meant that they are getting faster as they get older, which is a really, really cool notion, right?
That is very encouraging. That is super encouraging. I'll be turning 40 next time around, so it's good to know that
You're a baby.
I'm still a baby.
In terms of trail running, you've just reached the age where you can sort of think like, oh yeah, I've experienced a few things.
So you're saying I'm getting into the prime of my trail running career here. This is great news. Great news. That's great, Erik. You know, I think the very interesting thoughts that you bring up, and I think there's definitely something to it with kind of the way you described the pack working together almost as one to achieve that common goal, whether it's catching the gazelle or whatever, just, you know, existing and surviving. And that relates, it may not be exactly the same, but it relates to how in sports, like, you know, here in North America, you've got baseball, hockey, you know, North American football, all those things. And if you look at the championship teams, the way they're built, they have a great core of young, good athletes, right? But then they also have the veterans that have that experience, that have that knowledge, right? So like when you said in the trail run, it's not a matter of if something happens or if you're going to struggle with something, it's when it's going to happen. And same thing with those teams, right? Whether you go on a losing streak or one of your star players gets injured, you need those veterans there with that experience to talk them through and say, you know, it doesn't mean we're done yet. There's other ways to get around this. So I think there's definitely something to it. Very good thoughts.
More versatile. And I think part of the Project 80 success was also that we tapped into that group mentality, right?
Of course,
you're part of the group. And everybody was welcome into the group. You're just immediately one of the tribe.
Yeah.
But you are now running with us, right? And that means that meant that you had a sense of belonging and a reason to get out there and not go because you knew that other people were there.
Yeah, it's harder to make excuses when other people are there and you're kind of all relying on each other, right? And motivating each other. You don't want to let anybody down.
Just knowing that, and I've had numerous of these conversations where you went like, oh, I would have skipped this training if it wasn't for knowing that you would be there.
Yeah.
And then the other person would say exactly the same thing. And so sometimes I purposefully don't reply to like a text message if somebody's saying like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it tomorrow, then the easy out is like, that's okay, I'll go without you or whatever.
Yeah.
If you don't reply, then you put, it's a bit mean, but you put the other person in uncertainty, like, you think he saw it? Like, has he seen it in time enough for me to get there? You know what? I'll just go because I don't want to disappoint that other person.
Yeah.
And then you're out there, right?
Yeah, and then you don't regret it at the end. You know?
Never.
No.
I never regret a run that I initially thought like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy this.
Exactly, and I always tell this to my friends too, who, you know, the casual runners, the non-elites. It's like sometimes the hardest part of the run is just getting out your front door, right? But once you do that, you're good. But it's the lead up to, you know, getting out that front door and getting in that mindset. And I know I've struggled with that in the past, where it's like, I don't want to go. And then, you know, now I'm at the point where I'd say, you know, 99 out of 100 times I force myself to get out the door and I never regret it, right? But
just go and then see. And then I always say to people, like, start your workout. Like, just start your workout. And if after 10 minutes you really feel horrible, allow yourself to stop. Right? Sometimes we overtrain. Sometimes we because for us runners, the answer is always to go for a run. Right? Like, oh, I feel bad. Like, let's go for a run.
Yeah. Exactly.
That can be quite detrimental. But that's also where you start to. This is again where experience comes in. If you're 20, you might push through it and you might dig a bigger hole for yourself.
Yeah. If
you're in your 40s or towards your 50s, you know your body a little bit better, and you go out for that run and you spend the first 10 minutes thinking, like feeling, right? And then you go, okay, you're taking stock after 10, 15 minutes. If it's not there, it's not going to get there in the next hour or so. So just cut it. But chances are that once you've gotten out there, after 15 minutes, your body is actually ready and feeling better. And then you often have like one of the best runs ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I've experienced that lately. My diet has been garbage this past month. Just, I've been eating too many sweets and everything, but, you know, I've been out on the treadmill in the garage on some nights and I feel like, you know what, I'm going to walk. Like I don't have it. Like you said, it's just not there. So I end up, you know, completing my 5 kilometers on the treadmill, but it's like a run walk and it's, you know, it feels like the 5 kilometers feels like 15, but it's like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to walk and take it easy and not beat myself up. And I found though, you know, then I get outside because I'm like, I got to get off the treadmill and go run outside. And I have great runs outside, you know, so it's just one of those things where you kind of have to go with the flow and sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And, you know, it's just one of those things, right? There's always going to be ups and downs, right?
I'm a big believer in that sure, your watch and the data on your like Training Peaks or Garmin or Sunto or whatever, like whatever you use, your Strava, is great. But there's a lot to say for just occasionally running on feel.
Yeah.
Just watch at home, just go for a run, see how you feel. Learn to listen to the cues that your body gives you, not just in terms of injury, but just general well-being. Like what does my heartbeat feel like? What is my breathing? How's my breathing pattern? So there's a lot of benefit in running naked, as we say. Like, no watch, just go and just experience this, feel what the body does. You get a lot of information, right? The body talks to you constantly.
Exactly.
You just got to be able to listen.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, you've running with your watch, you know, you're running naked, if you will, but it's like you go on a running streak too. Let's go streaking. All this terminology out there. Right? If you really do go streaking, you probably get a pretty good time though, because the police will be chasing you.
Yeah, you won't last long. It's going to be a fast game.
Exactly. So Erik, we're getting a little bit short on time here, so let's wrap things up a little bit. But now you mentioned you had links for your 80, 85, and 90 plans available, and thank you so much for that.
No problem. When I get them to you, so they all lead up to, I have them in a PDF format now.
That's great.
So it will say that we're all working together towards the Bookathon, which obviously is passed now, but it doesn't mean that you can't just follow the program. So it's an 11-week program that is it's 4 runs a week. I would recommend that is the minimum that you do if you're trying to hit these times. So
sure,
80, 85, and 90, they are faster half marathons, right? They're not beginner half marathons,
right?
So you need to have some sort of running background in order to try and attempt these times. But they're nice structured trainings. They might have some workouts in there that you never heard of or never experienced, and you might go like, oh, this is really cool. I generally try to keep one speed session in there, one interval session, and then gradually you started to build in the longer work. But especially the longer work, we try to keep it interesting by making you do like under-overs or like doing some nice, neat little things to keep your brain occupied. Interesting.
I think I'm going to tackle that in January. I think it'll be a great way to start the new year and do that. That's going to be great. And I think, you know, 80, 85, 90 is probably not even going to be on time. I might need like 110. But you know what? You can modify, right?
The 80, 85, so this is for anybody listening who thinks like that's a bit beyond my reach. The 85 is adapted from the 80. The 90 is adapted from the 85. So the workouts are marginally different.
Okay.
The time is different, right? So you might have a base pace run, and that means that my base pace run is going to be different than your base pace run, and you could kind of tweak it towards your goal just simply by by looking at the paces and then adding 10, 20, 30 seconds per kilometer.
Yeah. And, even if somebody's targeting like a 90-minute, half marathon, for example, use that plan, and they don't quite get there, you still look at the relative improvements that you had from your previous best effort, right? And if you're making improvements, you're still making improvements, right? It's like you had mentioned, you kind of felt like Kipchoge on breaking 2 when you're just a few seconds shy of hitting your mark. And, what he said at the end of the interview, because I had recently watched this, was, before I ran this, we were 2 minutes away from running a sub 2, but now we're 25 seconds away. So somebody can make up that 25 seconds. And he ended up doing it anyways. But you know what I mean? So you look at that relative improvement, and it's still a great measuring stick.
It's already progress. Yeah. So even if it just gives you guidance in those first weeks of the new year, great. Then it's already fulfilled its purpose.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So I've got to at the end of December, I've got to go see an orthopedic surgeon. I know I mentioned in the email, I've got like a small tear in the back of my hamstring that's been kind of resistant to recovering from, physio and acupuncture and all those other treatments I've been doing. So we'll see what he says. I'm not anticipating getting any surgery or anything, and it doesn't, I've still been running through this whole thing, right? So it's not like it's really painful or anything, but I think it does affect the stability in my knee, because the tear is just right above my knee on the back.
Right.
So we'll see what he says. I'll keep you posted on that. But
yeah, please.
We'll see how it goes. But
any structural damage, be careful, right?
Yeah.
We want to, and we touched on this in our initial interview. Like, we want to still be doing this when we're 80. Right?
Exactly.
You're just entering the prime of your trail.
That's right.
So you want to prolong that. So if you could do taking 2 months off to let a hamstring strain heal, in the long run, it's nothing, right?
Yeah.
And right now it might feel like, oh my God, 2 months, like that's insane. I can't do this. But considering that we want to do this until we're well into our 80s, you're probably better off just listening to your orthopedic.
Yeah, that's true. I think the most rest I had taken since I heard it was about probably 2 weeks. So maybe I just haven't given it an opportunity. I don't know. But like you said, it's hard, right? You're training for a half marathon, and then this ultra marathon comes knocking on your door. Like, why not? What did I say earlier? It's that fine line between stubborn and stupid, right? So I'm leaning probably maybe on the stupid side right now, but
we're learning every day. Right?
Exactly.
We get tested every day.
Exactly, Erik. Quickly before we go, can you just remind us where people can get in touch with you if they have any questions?
Yes. So my company, the coaching that I do is form-focused running, and it's called effortless running. Who doesn't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I teach you, the entry program is a 3-week program where you get my guidance through the Training Peaks, where you learn to relearn how to run as smoothly and as effortlessly as when you were a kid. Or if you happen to be an East African runner, then you're probably doing it already. So find us at www.effortlessrunning.com. You can find us on Facebook as well, and there's an Effortless Runners Facebook group that everybody's welcome to join. And it's a really positive community of people encouraging each other. And there's a lot of knowledge shared there. Anything that I post there frequently about interesting stuff that I come across, either for my own training or that I discover somewhere else. So I would love to see people there. And then I think all of the social media things that you can. I even have a TikTok account now.
So, oh, no kidding! I'll have to check that
out. It's not very impressive.
You got to keep up with the times, eh?
Yeah, exactly. I haven't figured out how it works, but follow me on social media. I would love to see one of your listeners come through. I know that since last time, we've had a couple of people that listen to the podcast also opt in for the programs, and they've been really doing well. So yeah, keep those PBs coming and keep those positive emails coming, because it really does, focus on form really does change the way that you perceive your run.
Yeah, it really does. And I'll tell you, like, when you gave me my video analysis, you identified the hip drop that I have. And it's been something I've been working on. Now, I will say I haven't been as regimented in my drills as I'd like to be. But I do notice that, you know, I still have to be cognizant of it when I'm running. So I'm not at the point where I can just run and my form's changed and things are good. But when I have everything working the way I want it to work, my pace, you know, I'll run normally like maybe between like a 5:30, 5:40 kilometers, so not fast at all. But when I have all my things working together, my form feels good. I'm running easily at like a 4:45, and my perceived effort is still the same as it is at like a 5:30. So I always notice if I check my watch, I'm like, okay, focus on this or focus on that, and keep the hips more on a level plane and everything. And it is really hard, because you had mentioned, you know, my stride was a little narrow, or my feet are falling. So when I do try to open it up, it almost feels like you're running very square and stuff. But that's starting to feel a little bit more natural now. So I'm making improvements. Yeah.
That's a big one. That's a lot of people tend to run quite narrow. Yeah. And then when you ask them to run a little wider, it feels very awkward in the beginning. Yeah. But I'll tell you this, especially for people on the trails. Like if you look at, I saw Cheptegei and Kip Limo, the two Ugandan runners. Yeah. I saw them running on the 10K cross country, and you can see that they purposefully widen their stride, because obviously cross country is a lot of uneven surface, and they want to. So for trail running, a lot of the trail runners, if you roll your ankles often, chances are that you have quite a narrow stride, and you want to widen your stride a little bit, so that you are just more stable, and that you stack your joints above each other, and you're able to hold the load a lot more. I don't know if it was due to that, but on the 80K trail that I just did, I was able to slip and slide down the hill pretty comfortably, because I was purposefully trying to place my feet a little wider than what I would normally do, and what I would do on the track. And then recently I saw that Cheptegei, because he ran this world records on the 5 and the 10K and on the track as well, right? And he runs differently on the track than he does in a cross country. So that was cool to see.
It's smart, and it's, you know, it's one of those things where you just have to trust the process, because like I said, like even for myself, it's starting to feel more natural now with the wider gait, which is good, and I like that. But
takes a bit of muscle memory, right?
But over time it's been working, and I know if I'd been more religious with you know, practicing the drills and everything, probably my success would be a little bit faster. But either way, I'm happy with where I'm going, and I'm making improvements, so I can't complain about that. And thank you so much for the guidance, Erik.
You're most welcome. Welcome. So if you want to know more about that, go to www.effortlessrunning.com.
Absolutely. And you recently redesigned your website, and it looks beautiful. So
thank you. It was more work than I expected.
It always is, I think.
But no, I'm really happy with the result. So
good stuff, Erik.
I'll put all the content on there.
Wonderful.
But I'll make sure that I send you the training plans.
Okay, I'll add those to the show notes as well. And from my audience and myself to you, thank you again so much for coming on the show and sharing your wonderful plans and stories with us. We really appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
Okay,
thanks
Erik,
for having me.
all the best, and don't forget to run wild.
I will. See ya.
Bye, Erik.